Council, are you ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the National Community Survey work session with the City Council on August 1st. Aaron, would you like to kick this off for us?
Thank you very much. So late last year, we had the National Community Survey done by POCO, and we got the results in the beginning of January. The actual report focused on 10 central facets to the city. What they looked at when they did this survey was the economy, mobility, community design, utilities, safety, the natural environment, park and recs, health and wellness, education, arts and culture, and inclusivity and engagement. And then we also had about 15, I think it was 15 custom questions that we added at the end, that the previous city manager and the previous assistant to the city manager came up with those custom questions and kind of organized this whole survey. One thing I will say is normally when we have a study like this done, we will have the company come out and present it to you all. It was cost prohibitive this time. That's why you're having staff do it. And we did intend to have this before you back in June, but we've had a bunch of other work sessions that have kind of gotten in the way. So finally, we're getting to have this presentation here in August. A little bit about the survey, just some background. We sent the mailings out to over 3,000 randomly selected households. 10% of those were returned as undeliverable, so 2,700 effectively were sent out. 652 of those surveys were completed and returned. So we had about a 24% response rate, which they considered to be a 95% confidence interval. It seems like a low number, but according to the folks at POCO, it is 95% accurate in terms of the overall reflection of the community. All right. If we go to the bottom of page 2, I'll go over some of the key findings that they did share. We had the survey done and then they did provide us with a report, which all of you have received now is about 95 pages. And these are kind of the key highlights from the survey. And then after this, we'll get into the actual survey questions themselves. So what were the results of the survey? We had residents value the natural environment and support efforts to protect it. I think that's pretty obvious recently with our Avenger open space purchase, and just keep Woodland Park beautiful and the effort and attendance we get for some of those events. The economy is a priority and affordability is a concern. I don't think any of those are surprises. At least 8 in 10 residents gave high marks to their neighborhood as a place to live, and 7 in 10 praised the overall appearance of the city. Nearly 6 in 10 gave excellent or good ratings to the preservation of the historical and cultural character of our community. Residents did show some concerns for items related to growth and development. We did have our STR work sessions and elections and everything as part of this. And I do think that did play into the survey quite a bit as you look at some of the results. Ratings for well-planned residential growth, 30%, and well-planned commercial growth, 27%. On the next page, only about 1/4 of residents were pleased with the city's code enforcement and land use planning and zoning services. I do think that the STR discussions did play heavily into this as we can see throughout the survey. Safety and related services generally received high praise from the residents, with the overall feeling of safety garnering positive remarks of 90% from the residents. About half of the residents reported similar feelings of safety from fire, flood, or other natural disasters, which scored below natural averages, which is not a surprise either with our focus on fire mitigation and fire prevention. Fire services, ambulance, EMS received positive reviews from around 9 in 10 residents, and roughly 8 in 10 offered ratings of excellent or good for the city's crime prevention, fire prevention, education, and animal control. 7 in 10 respondents responded favorably evaluating police, sheriff services, and emergency preparedness. So to me, and not much of that was a surprise from the survey. I think living here, we can see those things. This is a very safe community. It's not surprising that people feel safe and enjoy living here.
Excuse me, Eric, would you advance the slide, please? Thank you.
Oh, that's me. I apologize.
Oh, is it you? Aaron, would you advance the slide, please?
I mean, Eric, come on. Can you update these? No. All right, let's see.
Thank you.
Aaron, were the results of the survey provided to the other taxing districts into the sheriff's office?
They have not yet, but we will. We'll have this posted to the website after the presentation and we will share it out. Yeah, they were engaged in the survey process. as part of, so we had 3,000 go out in the paper form.
Mhm.
And then they also had it available online, and they also did engage with some of the other key stakeholders.
So that 627, I think that was the number, did that include the online responses? Or
It
just-
does not.
Okay,
The 652, which they used for all of this, is only from the paper.
and how did they treat the online
They
responses?
provided it in the back of the packet as like an appendix, but they
Mhm.
did not include it at all in our study results.
Was there a discrepancy between the two, or did they kind of mirror each other?
There were a few, and I didn't put any of that in this presentation, but there were a few instances where it conflicted.
Mhm.
But for the most part, they kind of overlapped. They put all of the weight on the survey itself, the mailed version.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we'll go through the survey itself is broken up into those 10 facets. So we'll go through the 10 facets of the survey itself with kind of how we compared to ourselves in terms of the ranking, and then how we do against the benchmark. So the benchmark looked at, I think it's 550 other cities that are supposed to be similar to ours, and then it compares them to us nationally. And I don't have that exact number in front of me, but I think that's somewhere close. Yes, yeah. Like we can confirm that and then go back. Okay, so livability. These are all of the different metrics that they had in the survey. So they had overall economic health, where on most of these, you can see we rank similar to all of our competitors, which would be all the other cities throughout the United States. Quality of transportation system, we're lower. We don't necessarily have a bus system here, so I think that plays into it. We don't have a rail and train system here either. So I think if you look throughout the survey, this is represented a couple of times. I think one of them we get like a 0%, one of them we get 27. So it's reflected throughout that our transportation for public transportation is lower. And then the only other items on here, quality of natural environment, we ranked higher at 94%. Feeling of safety, we had 90%. Overall quality of our park and rec is 79%. I was surprised this one wasn't higher just because of our level of quality that we have in our parks around town, but I think we did have a very high score on this related to the other communities. They kind of rank that similar, and it's a huge range. It goes from like 50, being number 50 all the way to being like number 300 and something, and that's similar. So you have to be pretty great or pretty bad to be higher or lower, and some of these survey marks to be in the higher or lower category. And then, yeah, so the only other category we were lower in was opportunities for education, culture, and arts. And I do think our Park and Rec department has done an excellent job of adding more arts opportunities. So I think we've already kind of taken that into consideration and tried to put something into effect to influence that to be higher in the future. Any questions on this one?
For education, what do you, I don't recall, I know I responded to a mailed survey, but the question on education, did that include public education, higher education, senior education?
It's all of it.
Okay,
So it's education throughout the city, and then it's also additional opportunities for adult education. I know a lot of communities through the school system, they will have adult education opportunities and the whole network set up for them with curriculum. So that's,
I would anticipate it's probably those categories that cause that lower score, because we just don't have those opportunities here, really. Not for higher education or continuing education,
Continuing, yeah.
grades, et
Mhm.
cetera.
you know,
Just seems like it. Anyway,
all right. Okay, then we have quality of life. So going to page are we on now? We're on the bottom of page 4. So quality of life, the overall quality of life in Woodland Park, 57% of the respondents said it was good, 25% said excellent, 16% said fair, and 3% said 4. When you look at the question of what is Woodland Park like as a place to live, 88% of the respondents said that it was a good place to live, and the overall quality of life at 82%. So I think those are excellent metrics for us. They asked, do you intend to live in Woodland Park for the next 5 years? We had high score of 81% and recommend living in Woodland Park to someone else, 77%. So all good scores across the board there. We like seeing those. Then we had overall image or reputation. We had 58%. We kind of fell in the middle of the survey respondents on that one. again, I don't have additional information to share as to what was behind that but that's kind of where we ended up on that one.
Do you recall what month that went out?
I believe it started in February.
February 2023.
Mhm. Or I think it was,
It was earlier than,
it was,
Oh, is it?
April, but maybe it was.
oh.
I don't remember. I did take it, but I don't remember how long ago that was.
We started in, actually August.
August
so
of 10.
it's been about
August
a
of
year.
2023.
Yeah.
So we were in the throes of conservative versus whatever. Yeah.
Correct.
I think also just one thing to note too is that the questions are very simplistic, so they
Mhm.
allowed for individual interpretation.
Mm.
So for some of the results, you have to consider the context of how this individual interpreted that question to be able to answer it, and that will vary from person to person.
Certainly.
All right, then, under governance is the next section. So overall customer service by the Woodland Park employees, that was 82%.
Nice.
We were on the higher end for that one in terms of where we landed. And the survey is split up into two different sections, so I don't have where we actually, our numeric value for each one, but I did look that one up and we were, I think, in the top 100 for that one. Public information services, 55%. Again, we don't have any additional information to see what it is that they're referring to specifically in this one. I think we have really beefed up our social media pages and our communication that we've been putting out in the past probably 9 months. So I would think that this one would be increasing as well. But again, it's another takeaway that we have from the survey that we've tried to put in place. Overall quality of services provided by each of the following. So the city of Woodland Park versus the federal government, we're scoring higher, which is a good thing. Very happy to see that. And then over here on the pie chart, 26% said that they have confidence in the city, 4% said excellent, 36% said fair, and 34% said poor. Again, I think when we look at these governance slides, we do need to remember that the survey went out right in the middle of all discussions about STR and the regulations. So I do think a lot of these were influenced as well by that. So we have on this slide, we were lower in most categories in terms of the Woodland Park government performance. I don't think I'm going to go into much detail on these unless you have any questions. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Okay, economy. So the overall economic health of Woodland Park, 6% said excellent, 43% said good, 39% said fair, and 12% said poor. And then what impact, if any, do you think the economy will have on your family income in the next 6 months? And so 8% were very positive, somewhat positive was 10%, neutral was 38%, somewhat negative, and then very negative make up the other 46% of that one. All right, Woodland Park is a place to visit, 71%. Think that it is a nice place to visit. And I think we also that was one of the categories we ranked higher in. Woodland Park is a place to work, 43%. Again, that's not a surprising number there considering the employment opportunities that we have here. All right, and then the overall economic health, 49%, which seems very low, but in the survey, we were pretty much in the middle of the crowd on that one, with similar there. All right, overall quality of business and service establishments, 61%. Variety of business establishments, we're much lower at 39%, but we still were in that similar range, which was kind of in the middle of the crowd. Vibrancy of the downtown, again, we were in the middle of the crowd, even though it's 35%. It seems really low, but we weren't that low in terms of the survey results. But then shopping opportunities, employment opportunities, and cost of living, we were much lower than other communities, which is not surprising. It's not surprising. All right, was there any questions on that one before we go to mobility? All right. Sure. The employment opportunities and the cost of living specifically, to me, those two, I have no question that we would be lower on those. Shopping opportunities, I mean, I agree. I think we have quite a bit of shopping opportunities for a city of this size. But if you're comparing us in the survey to communities like Frisco and Breckenridge and a lot of, we're compared to a lot of those other cities. And so we have a little bit less than they do. So I think for this one, we fell into the lower category, but I think we were at the higher end of the threshold. That's. All right, mobility. Ease of walking, 65%, which we were on the higher end of the similar. Ease of travel by car and similar travel by bicycle. I think we have great community travel by bicycle, but we kind of fell in the middle on that one. Ease of public parking, we fell in the middle. Traffic flow on major streets, we fell into the lower category. I have no additional detail.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm shaking my head because I come from a region where, yeah, we do not have traffic here, so much less problems with flow, but whatever.
Yeah, and people, again, as Kristen said, they can interpret it
Yeah, maybe they were stating on 24, taking the survey on a Saturday afternoon.
in the middle of August, yeah.
I mean, if you enjoy watching the Highway 24 RV and boat show, then I suppose, maybe I get that, but yeah, okay.
And then ease of travel by public transportation, again, that one is
Well, yeah, we don't
non-existent, so
really,
it's much lower. What I did think was cool, walked or biked instead of driving 70%. We ranked higher on that one, which is
Yep,
awesome. We have a very healthy community that likes to get outside. Carpooled with other adults, 45%.
Huh.
And then use public transportation. That's not surprising. Only 5%. All right, then we have how the city was doing on several of these different services. So we had snow removal, sidewalk maintenance, street lighting. We fell similar on a lot of these categories. We did, I would say in 23, we did have a tough time with snow removal. So I would wonder if we did this in 24, if it was a little bit higher, because I think we did do really well this year, but I was happy to see that we still were in the similar range on that one.
yeah, I don't think 65% is too bad. Clearly they didn't consult Facebook before they came up with that.
Well, considering the snowfall that we had in several instances very frequently, they did exceptionally well.
Yeah.
And were able to help others as well,
Yes.
the county.
Absolutely. We were very proud of that fact this year. Traffic enforcement, street cleaning, traffic signal timing. I was kind of surprised at that one because I hear a lot about that, but we fell into the middle on that category. Street repair, we fell much lower and people are frustrated with the potholes. So I'm not surprised by that one. Unfortunately, we've been putting a lot of attention on that. I think this year we've made a lot of strides, but the roads they're falling apart frequently and we are doing our best right now. But again, this was last year's data. And then bus and transit services again here, much lower. Any questions on this one? All right, so now we're getting into community design. Okay, so the overall design or layout of Woodland Parks, residential and commercial, we had 10% said excellent, 42% said good, 33% said fair, and 16% said poor. Your neighborhood as a place to live, 87%. We were on the very high end of similar. I'm not surprised by that at all. I think most of the people I talk to and meet here love living here. Overall design or layout of the residential and commercial areas, a little bit lower though at 52%. And we were towards the bottom half of the middle on the similar on that one. All right, overall appearance, 69%, preservation of the historical or cultural character of the community, 58. I think that's obvious in this community. There's a lot of focus on that. Public places where people want to spend time, 56%, well-designed neighborhoods, 50%. And then we start to see some of the lower categories of overall quality of the new development, well-planned residential growth, well-planned commercial growth, variety of housing options, and then availability of affordable housing was our lowest category. Yes. Any questions on those? Land use, planning and zoning, 28%, and then code enforcement, 26%. And again, I do think that the short-term rental conversations did have an effect on some of these numbers.
The timing as well, this immediately followed the housing needs assessment. So some of these could reflect their opinion of after taking that survey as well.
Correct. All right, utilities. So sewer services, 89%, power, gas and electric, gas and electric, 82%, garbage collection, 81%, drinking water, 80. I'm sure Kip is a little salty over that. Not being the highest. Utility billing, 75%, stormwater management, 72. So all of those, we were in the high end of the similar category. I think we're doing pretty well on a lot of those. And then affordable high-speed internet access was the lowest one we had on that category at 56%. And I do think they have expanded quite a bit since the time of the survey, in terms of laying the fiber and having more reliable high-speed internet.
Yeah, and again, will you share those with Black Hills and Core?
Absolutely. And then overall quality of the utility infrastructure, 66%, which was, even though it's a lower percentage, it was very similar to our sewer and utility in terms of where we ranked among the other cities. All right, safety, this was one of our strongest categories. Overall feeling of safety in Woodland Park, 36% said excellent, 54% said good. So we very strong in those. And then 8 and 2 for fair and poor. Overall feeling of safety, 90% there. Bless you. And we did rank in the very high end of similar on this one. When staff first went through this report, we were very confused when we're seeing some of these numbers and saying we're in the similar category, and then we got to the back and saw where we actually ranked, and we were like, oh, okay, that makes sense, because I think we're like number 80 out of the 500, so we were pretty high, even though we're in the similar category. Please rate how safe you feel or unsafe in your neighborhood during the day. 96% said they feel safe. 93% said they feel safe in our downtown. 93% said they feel safe from violent crime, and 90% for property crime. So those are awesome. And then, not surprising, fire, much lower. So we're much lower than the rest of cities in the survey because of our vulnerability there. Fire services, some of these are out of our control if you have any questions on those specifically, but I will share those with the other jurisdictions. Emergency preparedness, 68%. That one I will say, the county really has taken a huge effort. We have quarterly meetings now on fire prevention, on emergency preparedness. I think we are, whether the community sees it or not, we behind the scenes really are doing a lot of work in that area to make sure we are prepared.
Yeah, we had an LEPC quarterly meeting this morning, and that was one of the big topics, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The chief normally attends all of those, as well as our budget manager. I don't think either one of them can make it today, but usually they're at all the meetings. Yeah. All right, and then natural environment, again, this was another area where we scored very high, 94%. Thought the overall quality of our natural environment was good. Air quality, 92%, cleanliness, 79%. And then, of course, water resources. It's a finite resource, so that explains why people would rank that one lower. Preservation of natural areas, 65%. Open spaces, 64%. And I would hope that number would have gone up since we purchased Avenger. And then yard waste pickup, we don't have bulk pickup here, and recycling, so those are much lower. All right, park and recreation, overall quality of our park and rec opportunities, 79%. As I said before, I think they're doing a fantastic job of offering more opportunities, art programming. They're launching flag football this year for the first time. I think there's some really awesome stuff that we are starting to expand on. And they've always done a great job, I think. Availability of paths and walking trails, 74%. Recreation opportunities, 68%, and fitness opportunities, 66%. So all of those fell in the high end of the similar category. People thought our parks, 83%, rated that quality as good. And then our recreation programs and recreation centers or facilities, 63% and 61%, which did kind of fall in the middle. All right, health and wellness. Health and wellness opportunities, 68%, which is a little bit on the higher end of the similar. And then these categories were a little bit lower. We fell in the bottom half of the similar here for preventative services, affordable quality food, affordable quality healthcare, and then affordable quality mental health care was well below the average. And then health services was 55%, which was kind of right in the middle. All right, then we have opportunities for education, culture, and arts. That was from the beginning, 42%, and that's definitely one of our lower categories. But then you have opportunities to attend special events and festivals. We're higher, 71%, and then we were on the higher end of the categories there. Support for the arts, even though they didn't think we have enough options, they do have a big support for it. And then opportunities to attend cultural arts, music activities. That was kind of right in the middle of the cities. I'll miss the next couple, and then our library, 88% there. But that's kind of, none of these are that surprising, I think, on the results here.
27% though is concerning for people's respondents on K through 12 education.
We fell into the very bottom on the K through 12 and the adult education. All right, and then I believe the last category we have is inclusivity and I can never say that word right, and engagement. All right, Woodland Park as a place to retire, 78%. We were on the very high end of similar on that one. Woodland Park as a place to raise children, we ranked a little bit lower, but I think that goes back to the education and some of the other items that influenced that one. Sense of community, 51%, and we were kind of right in the middle of the survey results on that one. And then residents' connection and engagement with their community, 47%. So residents' connection and engagement with their community on the pie chart up here, we had 38% said good, 39% said fair, and then 14% was poor and excellent. So that one was kind of right in the middle. It does kind of fall right into that 47. It's a pretty accurate reflection there. All right. Okay, opportunities to volunteer, 68%. I think we should be 100 on that one. I think we provide ample opportunities to volunteer. Maybe we just need to advertise them a little bit more on the city side. Opportunities to participate in social events and activities, 59%. Community matters, 58%. Neighborliness of residents, 56%. Sense of civic and community pride, 48%. And we were on the 59, 58, 56, 48. We were like kind of right in the middle in terms of the city and where we ranked nationally. And then openness and acceptance of the community towards people of diverse, that was 38%, 34%, I'm sorry, which was on the higher end of lower. All right, so any questions on the main part of the survey before we go into the custom questions? All right, so custom questions, we had a variety here, and I picked out the top ones that I think that the community and you all would be the most interested in. So we had construction of a reliever route. You know, this has been talked about for many, many years before I've been here. And I'm sure some of you know that. So 57% strongly support doing a study and looking at doing a reliever route, 26 somewhat support, 9% somewhat opposed, and 8% strongly opposed. So the vast majority of the community represented in the survey thinks that we should continue on with the reliever route, doing what we can on the city end to make that happen. Again, we know that's mostly contingent upon CDOT and their direction, but we can at the city level do some preliminary studies and work on some of those things. So it sounds like direction would be from the community anyway, that we should continue to do that.
Do we know what line we can walk up to on that before CDOT demands that they be involved? Like as far as studying route corridors and things of that nature?
Oh, so they already are. As
Okay.
part of the PPACG meetings, we have a whole transportation division, and they are well on the same page as we are.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it would be a waste of time for us not to just hold their hand as we go through this part.
Okay.
Workforce housing, I think this has also been another big conversation. We just had the housing needs assessment presentation a few months ago. Do you think more workforce housing options are needed in Woodland Park? 77% said yes, 23% said no. I will say Kelly and I had a meeting earlier today with some folks talking about workforce housing and what options we have as a city to assist with that. So we're going to explore every option that we can to assist with that within our ability.
Doesn't the charter significantly restrict this though?
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. But there are grant opportunities that we can partner on, and there are some other things that we can do to that don't violate it that we can do to start on that process. All right, and then the last question in this section was, should the city explore amending its code to allow incentives tax break for workforce housing development? Exact question, and this was pretty split, 57 to 43. So even though everyone wants the workforce housing, they aren't necessarily all willing to allow it to be changed.
To me, that signals a bit of a trust issue of, you know, we would love to have it, but we don't necessarily trust how government might approach doing it, but for what it's worth.
Aaron, there were other custom questions, and I know that there were a couple that asked about people's tolerance for the deer herd.
Yep.
There you go.
You're reading my mind.
Ah, the
How do you
deer
do
issue.
that? All right, the current, so another hot topic was the deer population and just the growing number of deer that we've seen. And so what does the community think about it? So the current deer population levels in Woodland Park, 27% were very concerned, 34% were somewhat concerned, and then 39% were not at all concerned. So kind of a split there. And so then it's like, okay, well, you're concerned about the deer. What are you concerned about specifically? So we asked about accidents inside city limits. We also asked about outside city limits, but I thought inside city limits would be the main focus. 31% are very concerned, 40% are somewhat, and 29% are not at all. So that leaned definitely towards the more concerned area. And then damage to personal landscape and garden plants. That was a little lower. 25% were very concerned, 34% were somewhat, and 41 were not at all. So that's where they fell on the deer questions. It's not, I think people did tell us here that they are somewhat concerned about them, but in terms of how concerned, I think it was not as.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the questions were kind of, the city submitted more pointed questions. I know because I helped write them. And then that survey
Didn't have.
consultant watered them down.
Yeah,
So-
they left more to interpretation, I think, as Kristen said a minute ago. That's unfortunately. All right, so big takeaway items, and I'd like to hear from you all as well. When Kristen and I went through the survey, we looked at what are the biggest takeaway items, what really stuck out here. Street repairs, obviously, people want the streets repaired. We passed a tax for it. We're doing the work. I think you're gonna see going forward, Ben is fully on board now and has had time to plan. And so you're gonna see a lot of streets projects this year. You're already seeing them started. You're gonna see a lot more this year, next year. So hopefully people are gonna feel that money being spent on what they want it to be spent on. That's very important to me. Planning and zoning, I know we've all had many conversations about this, but planning and zoning in general, I think part of this in the study was affected by the short-term rental conversation, but I think there's also other areas that need to be addressed, code enforcement, just our planning process in general. So we'll be looking at that as we move forward. Traffic flow on major streets. So again, I didn't necessarily understand exactly what they were saying in the study, but every time Ben looks at a street, he looks at the traffic flow, he makes it the optimal design. So I think as we move forward with him doing the streets projects, you're gonna see improvements in our traffic flow and the way that that's working. 24 and 67 though are not totally in our control at all. So we will do our best with access off of those streets though. Housing affordability, as I said, we are having meetings on that to see if there's any opportunities, any options that we have to do something to assist with that piece of it. We are limited, but we do have some options there. Opportunities for art programming, as we shared, we are doing more and more in that category. And I think there's a lot more to come in the future. So I think hopefully people will be satisfied and happy with some of the art programming that's going to be coming out in the next few months. And then the reliever route. It sounds overwhelmingly like the people would like to see something moving on the reliever route. So those are my biggest takeaways. I don't know if anybody wants to add any other items to this list.
It would appear that education is a major issue when you look at the numbers on page 12 of our package. K through 12, much lower. Availability of quality childcare and preschool lower. And then adult education opportunities, very low. Our ability to influence any of that is minimal as a city government, but I think that would be a key takeaway.
Okay. Any other items?
So on the traffic flow on major streets, one of the things that, and I don't know that we have a solve for it, but we have very little parking on the
Hmm.
south side of 24. And I don't know that we can solve that, but it'd be nice if we could have better parking on the other side of the highway.
Okay, we will definitely add that.
And then code enforcement is, my pet peeve these days, so.
We've got that one on the list.
I know you do.
Well, I'm curious about what discussions have been held on affordable housing. I don't, again,
So the state last year passed Proposition 123, which has very specific language on allowing for affordable housing incentives. I want to use the right word here. It's funding for that, but the cities have to opt in throughout the state. And so we've been researching it and looking into it and seeing if it will be a fit for the city. And so that's one area because it does unlock a lot of funding for developers to be able to develop affordable housing at a reduced cost. However, it is difficult for them because they have to be at a lower price point when they come to market, which, it all should work together. So they provide the grant funding incentives to reduce their cost, and then they pass those reduced costs on to the community.
so you were primarily looking at new development, not rehabbing existing housing.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and then did you then look at how many empty lots or available lots that we have for any new projects?
Correct.
Okay.
That's all part of this process.
We do have a recent inventory that was
Yes.
done within the last few years.
Mhm.
And we did just have the housing needs assessment done to show us where the community in that study thought that we had a need.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one.
I don't disagree.
There may be some hope. Maybe.
We try to be partially optimistic.
I'm
Never fully. Anything else? Any other items?
just want to make sure you share the results with the courier as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Anything else, council? Erin, anything else to share?
I think that's it from our end.
Then we'll,
Oh, I did
Yeah.
actually, sorry, I
Uh-oh.
did have one. There was a slide you didn't go over that I thought was interesting, which was the participation levels.
Oh, did I miss it? Let me.
Yeah, so,
Which slide is it?
well, I don't know, it's not in your presentation, it's actually in the,
Oh,
so if, did you vote in the most recent local election? 88% was higher than the average. Contacted City Woodland Park for help was 53, which was similar. Volunteered your time to some group or activity, 40, which was again similar, but the next three are higher, which was watched a local public meeting, attended a local public meeting, and campaigned or advocated for a local issue, cause, or candidate was higher. I just think that's an interesting show that people are actually involved.
oh, yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, again, those didn't surprise me at all.
and they don't surprise me, but I thought that, it was interesting for the public to know that too.
Our community is very involved and like to be in the know.
thanks,
Yeah,
Catherine.
thank you for sharing that.
No, don't be sorry. All right, well, we'll end the work session and we'll take up the regular council meeting at 6:30.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.